Arun was a young boy who lived in a peaceful village surrounded by green fields and distant mountains. But despite the beauty around him, there was very little peace inside his heart. He became angry over the smallest things. If someone disagreed with him, he shouted. If a child accidentally bumped into him, he lost his temper immediately. One afternoon, while helping his father repair a wooden cart, Arun accidentally broke one of the wheels. Instead of accepting his mistake, he angrily threw his tools on the ground and blamed everyone around him. The villagers had started avoiding him because they never knew when his anger would explode again. Deep down, Arun felt lonely, but his pride never allowed him to admit it. That evening, Arun argued with his father once again. His father calmly tried to explain that anger was slowly destroying his life, but Arun refused to listen. Furious and frustrated, he stormed out of the house and walked toward the forest near the village. The sun was slowly disappearing behind the hills, painting the sky with soft orange and red colors. Cold wind moved through the tall trees, while dry leaves crunched beneath his feet. Arun's breathing was heavy, and his mind was filled with anger, confusion, and stubborn thoughts. Part of him felt guilty for shouting at his father, but another part of him believed everyone else was the problem. As he walked deeper into the forest, the sounds of the village faded away until he finally noticed a small hut beneath an old banyan tree. Outside the hut sat an old monk wearing simple robes and a peaceful smile. The monk looked at Arun quietly and said, "You seem troubled, my son." Arun crossed his arms and replied angrily, "People are impossible. They keep making me angry." The monk gently invited him to sit down beside him. For a few moments, neither of them spoke. The forest was silent, except for the soft sound of wind moving through the branches above them. Then the monk placed a bowl of muddy water in front of Arun and asked, "Tell me what you see." Arun frowned and replied, "It's dirty water." The monk nodded and said, "Now wait." After several quiet minutes, the mud slowly settled at the bottom, and the water became clear. The monk smiled softly. The human mind is exactly like this water. When anger shakes it, everything becomes cloudy. But when the mind becomes still, clarity returns on its own. Arun looked at the clear water and asked quietly, "But how do I stop being angry? I try, but it always comes back." The monk looked toward the mountains in the distance before answering. "Anger is like fire. If you keep feeding it, it grows stronger. But if you stop giving it your attention, it slowly fades away." Arun listened carefully as the monk continued speaking. Most people believe peace comes from changing the world around them. But true peace comes from learning to control what is happening inside. The monk then told him a short story about a traveler who carried burning coal in his hands, hoping to throw it at someone else. Before he could throw it, the coal burned his own hands first. "That is what anger does," the monk said gently. "It hurts you before it hurts anyone else." For the first time in his life, Arun became completely silent. Before Arun left, the monk gave him a strange task. "Tomorrow bring me a sack of potatoes," he said. The next day, Arun returned carrying a heavy sack filled with potatoes. The monk handed him a marker and explained, "Every time someone makes you angry, write their name on a potato and carry it with you everywhere." Arun thought the task sounded foolish, but he agreed anyway. Over the next several days, he wrote many names on the potatoes: his father, the shopkeeper, children from the village, even his closest friend. As time passed, the sack became heavier, and the potatoes slowly began to rot. The terrible smell followed him everywhere, and carrying the sack became exhausting. Finally, frustrated and tired, Arun returned to the monk and said, "I can't do this anymore." The monk calmly looked at him and asked, "What are you carrying?" Arun replied, "Rotten potatoes." The monk smiled gently and said, "No, you are carrying anger. Every grudge, every insult, every moment of hatred becomes heavier the longer you hold on to it." Arun slowly stared at the rotten potatoes and realized the truth. All this time, he believed anger made him strong, but in reality, it had only poisoned his heart and isolated him from others. The monk then placed a hand on Arun's shoulder and said, "Peace is not found by controlling others. Peace is found by controlling yourself." Those words deeply touched Arun in a way nothing else ever had before. Changing was not easy for Arun. The very next week, a man in the market insulted him during an argument over food prices. Arun immediately felt anger rising inside him like fire. His fists tightened, and for a moment he almost shouted back. But then he remembered the sack of rotten potatoes and the monk's calm voice. He took a deep breath, stayed silent, and walked away. It was the first time he had ever controlled his anger, instead of letting it control him. Some days he still failed and lost his temper, but little by little he began improving. The villagers noticed the change. Arun became calmer, kinder, and more patient with everyone around him. Several months later, Arun returned to the forest to thank the old monk for changing his life. But when he arrived at the banyan tree, the small hut was empty. The monk was gone. Only a few words had been carved into the wooden door. "The quieter the mind becomes, the clearer life becomes." Arun stood there silently as the evening wind moved gently through the trees. At that moment, he realized the monk had not simply taught him how to control anger. He had taught him how to understand himself. From that day on, whenever anger entered Arun's heart, he remembered the muddy water and the rotten potatoes, and instead of reacting immediately, he chose peace. Sometimes, the strongest people are not the ones who shout the loudest, but the ones who remain calm during difficult moments. Anger may feel powerful for a moment, but peace creates a strength that lasts forever. If this story touched your heart, don't forget to like, subscribe, and join the gentle fire for more emotional stories and timeless life lessons.